Welcome to the Dome Discussions Podcast. Your top source for all things New Orleans Saints. Powered by four voices who live and breathe black and gold.
Touchdown!
Every hit, every play,
Welcome to the NFL.
every moment. We've got it covered.
Let's go! Let's go!
What's going on, Who Dat Nation? Appreciate everybody tuning in to the Dome Discussions Podcast, part of Be in the Know Network. I'm Kyle Besson with Athlon Sports and Canal Street Chronicles.
I'm Nick Jennings with Canal Street Chronicles.
I'm Kaylee Acarino with Canal Street Chronicles.
I'm Drew Collins with Who Dat Dish.
All right, we appreciate everybody tuning in today. Before we get into any of our big talking news, Jeremy Fowler just broke some news that Nick Chubb is interested in planning to sign with the Houston Texans on Monday, but the New Orleans Saints are interested and have been a team that's interested in Nick Chubb and that kind of brings up a talking point about how the Saints are, one, interested in Nick Chubb, and two, the Saints are still looking to add to their running back room. We all know that outside of Alvin Kamara, there's not a lot of depth. You got Devin Neal as a rookie. Kendre Miller has never lived up to it. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still here, but outside of that, there's not too much going on in the Saints running back room, and that's scary for an offense that Kellen Moore is going to be running. I was wondering what you guys think about that.
Yeah, well, look, throughout OTAs, it is clear that there is no leading running back two at this point. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Devin Neal have gotten extensive looks at that position, and Kendre Miller seemed to be dropping in workload. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I do think Nick Chubb would be worth looking into, bringing that goal line back to New Orleans. I haven't had that in a couple years, so I think that would be beneficial for sure.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that the Saints are even looking at Nick Chubb right now. One of the things Jeremy Fowler made sure to say is that Nick Chubb is looking for a contender, which where we think the Saints are, that's not really what they are. So the Texans are the favorite, but the fact that the Saints are looking for a running back obviously says a lot about the team, and I think Nick Chubb can bring a different factor to this offense. It just matters if he could bounce back from the injuries, because last season he didn't look as great as he did in the past, but if he shows to be healthy and it's the normal Nick Chubb, this could be a huge addition.
Being that goal line bruising running back is something the Saints really need. Devin Neal can run inside the tackles, but that's really not as much his game. Kamara's not going to. Getting that person who can just pound it in between the tackles, get those tough yards would be huge for the team.
100%, and I think we talked about Kendre Miller a little bit, and I will say there was a video that went viral on Saints Twitter recently. It was of them doing the drills, and it was like, everybody, it was a quote tweet, it was, who was the best at this drill? And it was clearly Kendre Miller. Kendre Miller was the smoothest, the quickest at the drill. But, it's the availability that everybody's wondering about. And I don't think getting Nick Chubb actually guarantees you that availability anyways. And this talking point isn't as much about Nick Chubb as it is about the Saints still looking to add to their running back room. And I'm going to have to look at the remaining free agents there. But it's interesting to see that they still want to add to the running back room. And it's clear why. I mean, like we all said, outside of Alvin Kamara, there's no number two. It's not clear. And Kendre Miller, who we all think can be that, hasn't been it.
And I will say it might be more about the Saints just wanting to add talent more than the running back. Something throughout the offseason is that for the Saints has been that they see talent, they see if they're available, and they want to try to get that talent no matter what they have in that position. Obviously, they have a lot of holes in the roster, so no matter what, it's going to look like an upgrade. But they've really wanted just upgrade or wanted more talent no matter what. So Nick Chubb might just be that, where they think they could just elevate the roster more. And not really it might not be about the running back room as much as we think, but it's still important to note that they're even looking at running backs.
100%. And we just wanted to break that news to everybody, or break that news. Jeremy Fowler broke it, but we wanted to talk about it before we actually head into our biggest worries coming outside of OTAs. OTAs are wrapped up. We're heading into minicamp, and there's still holes that some of us are worried about. We're worried about, will this be fixed by the season? Is this going to be the kryptonite for the Saints? Nick, tell us what was your biggest worry for the Saints going into the season?
Yeah, look, right now, I feel like the Saints do have some guys in their cornerback room that could be a part of their future, or that will be a part of their future. But right now, I just can't say that I'm confident in them being able to cover bona fide number one wide receivers in this league. Kool-Aid McKinstry, he started putting on better later in the season last year once Marshawn Lattimore got traded and Paulson Adebo was out with that broken fibula. So he's kind of getting that experience. He's kind of had that experience guarding number one wide receivers. But look, you've got a rookie out there in Quincy Riley who actually participated in OTAs last week for the first time. He was actually getting looks on the outside. And look, Alante Taylor is even seeing snaps on the outside again. Spent a lot of time on the inside during the beginning of OTAs, has spent more time on the outside. And it's not just in base sets like it was the last couple of years. So it's going to be interesting. Like I said, I do think those three guys could be a part of your long-term future, but I don't know if I feel confident in it right now.
And I think it's
And I'm very
interesting.
high on
Yoga. I think it's interesting. PFF actually recently released their most improved at each position, and they did have Kool-Aid McKinstry. And I can't remember who exactly from PFF had it, but he had Kool-Aid McKinstry as being the biggest standout breakout player at cornerback in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think it really all, in my opinion, it all hinges on Kool-Aid because he is the first string corner. If he has a sophomore slump or doesn't make the improvements that need to happen, it could get very ugly very quick. And I think with Paulson Adebo, I knew I was going to say that. With Alante Taylor, I love the role that he's currently in, where he's going to play inside and outside, and he's going to be used all over the field, and it's going to bring a lot of flexibility to this defense. But that's still another worry where he has had some down years recently also. So will he make those improvements? And I do think that the Saints could look in free agency for Asante Samuel Jr., and that could be a very important addition to this cornerback room. But as of right now, I agree with Nick. It's a huge worry, and I honestly think it could be the weakness of this defense.
Yeah, and like you said, Asante Samuel is definitely on the table. Now he's got to clear, I believe it's early July where he's got to clear a checkup, and the Saints definitely want him. The Saints have shown, we've talked about this, I think every episode now, the Saints have shown interest on wanting to add to the cornerback room, and they haven't done so yet. I like Quincy Riley, but he is a fourth round pick. There's no expectation for him to come in immediately and impact the team. It's Kool-Aid McKinstry. He was a second rounder last year. I think he was 40th overall, if I'm correct. That's a high draft pick. Kool-Aid McKinstry has to be that guy. Alante Taylor, he's been inconsistent. He has to step up the consistency. Now, I'd like for the Saints to pick a spot for him, let him really work on his craft there. But 100%, I'm with you. It is a big worry, and it is probably the biggest worry for me on the defense because outside of your two veteran safeties, your cornerback room is just inconsistent and questionable.
Yeah, and Alante Taylor is it's a drastic change when you see him on the outside corner compared to the slot. Last season, he was great in the slot, and as soon as he got put outside, it just wasn't good. Hugo Amadi and Terrell Burgess have actually been seeing some slot snaps and OTAs if they do decide to keep Alante on the outside. But like you said, Kyle, I think they need to stick him at a spot and just let him perfect his craft. You're just moving him around too much.
100%. For Caleb, now what is your worry on the team?
Yeah, I know I said cornerback might be the biggest weakness on the defense, but I actually am going to still stick with the defense. I think a very underrated worry is this defensive tackle room. No matter what, if Brandon Staley plays in a three or uses a 3-4 defense or a 4-3 defense, I do think Brian Brzee is going to be playing that 3-4 defensive end and not really be that defensive tackle. And sometimes on 4-3 defense alignments, he is defensive tackle. But right now, looking at the room, the names that are on the roster are Brian Brzee that I talked about, Nathan Shepard, Kalen Saunders, Vernon Broughton, Christian Boyd, John Ridgway, and Devon Godchaux. Now, the issue is that I don't really think that there's enough talent in that room to begin with. And I think that the floor might be, it's not really high and the ceiling is not really high. It's in this weird midpoint where it's like, it's not going to be a game changer, but it might not fall out and be horrible. And the issue is that there's too many players. I'm not sure. One of these defense tackles are probably going to be cut in the 53-man roster cuts. And I just think that there's not enough talent. Looking at nose tackle, Devon Godchaux is really the only one that we have right now. And Christian Boyd can play that, but very unproven. Ridgway might be able to, but I think he's going to be that 53-man roster cut. Kalen Saunders can possibly can, Nathan Shepard maybe, but it's just a really weird room right now where the top end talent really isn't there besides Brian Brzee, who might play 3-4 defensive end, and the floor is kind of low, so it's really just not a great room right now.
They added
Right,
a ton
and
to it, and
Go ahead, Drew.
they added a ton to it, but you still haven't seen. They added Devon Godchow, they added Vernon Broughton. Last year they added a bunch more too, but it's still not at that level you'd want it to be with how much either draft capital or money they've spent on it.
And yeah, look, I will say I do like how they have addressed the run defense. You can tell with the draft, the selections of Danny Stutzman and Vernon Broughton, and bringing in Devon Godchow. He was very good in the run for the Patriots last year. And look, I really like the addition of Bo Davis, defensive line coach from Texas. Kellen Moore actually spoke on him briefly, said that he's everything they want in their program. He's been excellent. He's been around this game a long time, said that he really connects with the players. And look, he's even gotten some of the defensive ends in better shape. Chase Young and Carl Granderson have dropped to about 265 pounds this offseason, so they are closer to natural playing weight now. They should have better speed. And look, I'm really intrigued to see how this defensive line looks. But yeah, I agree. I don't really see much of a high ceiling with the defensive tackle room, though I do have a lot of hope for Brian Brzee and Christian Boyd. I think Christian Boyd just needs some opportunity.
Yeah, and I think Bo Davis that's a good point because I think that's the factor. That's the one thing that will raise the floor of this defensive tackle room because he can make players just better. And I think that can happen. And it's kind of interesting with the Chase Young and Carl Granderson that I'm fairly certain, I forget where the quote was, but they might be playing outside linebacker on the defense in the 3-4 defense, which I thought was very interesting. Chase Young, I kind of expected that just because of how weird outside linebacker was. But with Carl Granderson out there, it's very interesting. But yeah, Bo Davis is a very important factor with this also.
And it's also good to remember that the Saints did retain Byron Young, I believe it is, or Brian Young, I can't remember exactly, former Saints defensive lineman. As soon as he took over from Todd Grantham last year when they made that midseason change, the defensive line production was just immensely different. Cam Jordan finally got to getting some sacks. The energy was just completely different. I don't think Todd Grantham really practiced well, and I think that was a big issue. That's why Kellen Moore said at the beginning of OTAs, that's what they're focusing on, is practicing well, learning how to practice. And like I said, Bo Davis is a big proponent in that, and Brian Young he has a great connection with his players, so I like the potential there.
And I like what Nick said. Nick talked about how they actually did address the defensive line enough, though. They definitely targeted the defensive line as one thing, and that's one thing Kellen Moore said. He wants to build from the trenches on defense and offense, and they've added to it. I'll say the Saints couldn't stop the run last year in a 4-3 with the talent they had then. Now, obviously, the idea isn't switch to a 3-4 because we couldn't stop the run anyways. But you could kind of look at it right that they couldn't stop the run with a 4-3. Switching to the 3-4 is not going to hurt them that more. And now you got better packages to blitz the passers. So I think switching to the 3-4 alone just kind of helps because we're not going to see too big of a loss from last year's run defense. We were, I believe, the worst in the league. So switching to the 3-4 and having a new scheme might just be better for the players. I mean, you had the personnel before, just because the way Saints drafted before. They really like their tall, lanky defensive linemen that could kind of be versatile. That's what Isaiah Foskey was. You know, all these guys, Granderson, they're all tall, long-armed guys. Chase Young as well, who they can fit in these different positions and, like you said, play outside linebacker. So I know we were talking this as a defensive tackle room, but it could be seen as a whole defensive line room just with the scheme change. All right, but after that, so now we see Drew. What is your concern with the team coming up?
I'm going on defense again. I'm going linebackers. Obviously, outside of Demario Davis and Pete Werner, the lack of experience outside of them is kind of stunning. I was looking at the defensive snap counts in their career. Demario Davis, 12,342. Pete Werner, 2,643. Then it drops all the way down to 118 with Nefi Sewell, followed by DeMarco Jackson with 73. Those are all the players with defensive snaps on the linebacker group. Also got Danny Stutzman, 4th-round rookie. He's obviously going to make an impact. I think he will. But outside of that, Tyreen Powell's the UDFA. Isaiah Stallbird, who can make an impact. UDFA from last year out of South Dakota State, I believe. But one of the top two guys gets injured. Who is going to fill in for them? That's just a question they got to answer. Someone needs to step up. The top tier talent is great, but the biggest concern is the depth behind it. Who's going to step up in that role if they need someone?
Right, and rookie linebacker Danny Stutzman, like you mentioned, has gotten work with the ones when Demario has not been present at OTAs. He's also been working with the second team while Demario has been present, so he's going to see the field and he's going to have an impact. And like I mentioned before, he's great when it comes to stopping the run, and that's where the Saints really need to address. So I assume that he will have a huge impact.
And Pete Werner has been not the greatest when Demario Davis has been out. I don't have like a PFF grade in front of me, but I would love to see that, where I want to see Pete Werner's grade when Demario Davis isn't on the field, because it is his play does go down. Now I do think that Danny Stutzman can kind of fill that Demario Davis role a bit, and maybe Pete Werner can play well off of that. But Pete Werner as the one is not where the Saints linebacker room can be, and that's an issue with Demario Davis getting older. And as you said, there's so many questions in the depth of that linebacker room, and I feel like that's been a recent issue. I mean, since waiting for Quan Alexander, where that was the third linebacker, and it was going to help, and it did help. But even Willie Gay last year, they've wanted that third linebacker, and it just hasn't been enough. So hopefully Danny Stutzman can be that, and hopefully the health of this defense can get better. But there's a lot of worries with this.
The Saints have had the luxury of having Demario Davis be able to stay healthy for all these years, being Iron Man, barely missing any time. And you just don't know if they'll have that luxury with him getting older, especially if he ever retires or goes off the team. So you got to have someone who can step up and be that primary backer when Demario Davis isn't there.
And I saw when I saw you listed the linebackers outside of Demario and Pete Werner. I mean, I knew it. I think we all saw it. Knew it. This is going to be this is a Danny Stutzman conversation, because the Saints linebacker room is really betting on Danny Stutzman. You haven't really drafted a linebacker high since Pete Werner. You haven't really bet on it. You've gone to free agency. Like you said, Willie Gay, Quan Alexander, who both seemed like decent signings, but the Saints didn't retain them, couldn't keep them, didn't want to keep them. So this is a lot on Danny Stutzman. You know, not great in coverage, really pretty bad in coverage, but it's going to address the run game. And the way I see it is Danny Stutzman kind of has to be a hit for this linebacker room, because Demario Davis is running out of time. Was he 30, 35?
33, 34, something like that.
I knew it was up there, right? Yeah, so he's getting older, and in football age, that's ancient. So Danny Stutzman really has to be the guy, and if not, then the Saints are going to be, start swinging, singing shots, or taking somebody, because they need somebody to step up, and I don't know if Demario Davis has another season in him after this one.
They had to be
going back
confident
to
someone.
that.
Oh, you go, yeah. They had to be confident in someone because they lost Anthony Orji. They just let him go in a kind of surprising move. In recent years, he was kind of the guy who took some good snaps for them when someone wasn't available. So cutting him kind of shows that they have to be really like the upside of someone. Hopefully it's Danny Stutzman, or it could be Jalen Ford, who I forgot to mention. Someone like that, just they have to have some confidence in.
Yeah, 100%. And I completely forgot about Jalen Ford too. When I said they didn't draft a linebacker high, I meant high, not didn't draft one. I did forget Jalen Ford though, but and for the final concern is mine, and my concern with the Saints is not necessarily the running back room, but the running game in general. I think Taysom Hill. I'm gonna start this with Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill was a big part of the running game last year, every year before, because you didn't have anybody else. If outside of Alvin Kamara, it was Taysom Hill, and now Taysom Hill torn ACL, he's not going to be there. Who's going to take the snaps away from Alvin Kamara? Alvin Kamara is getting older too. Somebody needs to take some reps away from him, keep him as fresh legs as much as possible. As we kind of talked about in the Nick Chubb, and we're kind of doubling back on a lot of Nick Chubb because the Saints see that they need help on the running back room too. It's Kendre Miller. Kendre Miller should be healthy. He is the guy that, if was healthy, he would be the one. The talent is there. Kendre Miller is super talented and just cannot stay healthy. And you can't bet on him to stay healthy. Right now, when we talk about this, I feel like you kind of have to pass over Kendre Miller and hope he does stay healthy and plays well. But outside of him, when you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's somewhat of a proven back in the sense you know what you're going to get out of him. It's not going to be a high ceiling anything. Devin Neal was a 6th-round rookie. Again, kind of like I said with Quincy Riley, your expectation for him isn't high. You have no high expectations, and the reason this concerns me is because you brought in Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore just watched Saquon Barkley run for 2,000 yards. That was the Kellen Moore offense, won a Super Bowl winning team. The season before that, he played with the Chargers, and they didn't have a run game, and he wasn't great. With the Cowboys, it was a little more pass heavy, but the run game complemented it well, especially with Ezekiel Elliott. The Saints want to run the ball. They are building the trenches to run the ball. There's a certain way they want to do it. Outside of Alvin Kamara, I don't know how well they're going to do. I don't know if Kellen Moore is going to really draw up the best schemes for it. I mean, see, rookie head coach. I don't know if this offensive line can really block for him. It's a new alignment, whole new offensive line in terms of where everybody's playing. There's a lot of uncertainties with the running game, and I'm not sure if it's going to work out.
Right, and I think it's also important to note that the Saints did go back and get Brendan Nugent, their offensive line coach, who Brendan Nugent, who was their offensive line coach from 2015 to 2021. Saints had their best years under him. Run game was really strong in those years. And Joel Thomas came back from the New York Giants, spent a year with the Giants last year, had Tyrone Tracy playing at a really high level. I believe he wasn't getting along great with Dennis Allen in the past regime, which is why that move happened, because you don't really see moves like that when there's not a promotion involved. But he came back, and he's got a great relationship with Alvin Kamara. Those two guys have been there when the Saints run game was at its best, so that's encouraging to see.
Yeah, and I'm unbelievably high on Devin Neal, Marcus Yarns. I think they can make the roster, and I know Drew's going to talk about Devin Neal, but I definitely think they're going to make the roster, and I definitely think that they're going to improve this running back room. And I know we talked about the video of the drill, and Devin Neal did not look great in that drill, but I'm just going to say it right now. I care about what's on the field, not really about that drill. Same thing with Kendre Miller. If he can't block, then does the drill really matter? That's kind of been the worry in the past with him. And if that's still a worry with this scheme, then that's going to, I talked about it 2 podcasts ago with that room where if he can't stay healthy, obviously, but he also can't get those blocking assignments, it's not going to, his spot is going to be up for grabs. And going back to the Nick Chubb stuff that we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, the fact they're looking at a running back, I know I said that it might not be, and it might just be about talent, but still, if it is about looking at a running back, that's big because they see an issue with this current room and they want those upgrades. So maybe the players aren't showing enough right now, or and they're worried about Alvin Kamara, or possibly they wanted Taysom Hill to be this power back, and his health is a huge question mark going into the season, or probably going into the season. So it's just a lot of factors right now with this room that puts a lot of questions ahead.
I'm really high on both the rookie running backs. All aboard the Devin Neal hype train, have been for honestly years now. Love the Marcus Yarns signing as UDFA. I think they do have a lot of talent. In any other running back year, I mean, this year's running back class for the NFL draft was unprecedented. One of the best we've seen in a long time. I feel like both the running backs, Marcus Yarns, I feel like would be drafted in any other year. Devin Neal would be going a lot higher in any other year. I think they have a lot of talent in the room. They just need to see what they have, get them on the field. I feel like we're going to see a lot in preseason. We're not going to see, obviously, the full starters. We're not going to see the full starting 5 offensive line together. But we can at least get a sense of what they have, and I think that's going to be really important to know like what the depth chart is, who's going to be running after Kamara.
And look, Kendre Miller was my guy coming out of college. I did a lot of stuff on him. I really liked him. I was ecstatic when the Saints signed him. So every time I talk about Kendre Miller, you're going to hear a little bit of passion there because I'm frustrated with Kendre Miller. I genuinely think he's the guy. I think healthy, he is at least a top 15 running back, but his clock's running out. First of all, we know how it is with rookie running backs in general, and these injuries are only speeding that process up. But and I know you said it with the drill, it's really not what matters on these videotapes and the drills, but he looked great. He looked fast, he was quick, and he has that burst. And Kendre Miller always had that. He's got a nice balance with him, and during his rookie year, he really worked on himself as a receiver. I think, all healthy, Kendre Miller is the running back to start for the Saints. Not start, outside of Alvin Kamara. He's that number 2. But we don't have that, and sadly, I don't know if we're ever going to get to see that. And maybe it is time for the Saints to go look somewhere else because running game is really important in this new offensive scheme. And especially at this part I almost forgot to bring up, you have young quarterbacks. If it's not a rookie quarterback, it's going to be a second-year quarterback. You need a good running game because if not, these guys are going to be throwing themselves out of games. They're not going to win you games right away. You need a running game to complement these guys, to keep them ready, keep them stable. And, that's going to be important, plus this Kellen Moore scheme.
And one of the most frustrating things ever is rewatching Kendre Miller highlights because it's so good. You see so much talent, and you just want the whole picture to be complete. And you want Kendre Miller's game to be complete so he gets that second string spot. Because if he does, this running game is going to be amazing. If he is healthy, picks up blocks, does everything correct, this running game is going to be amazing with this offensive line. It's just that that's such a big question mark.
And at this point, it's only something that we can hope for. Because I know I think, I'm not even going to talk for you guys. I love Kendre Miller's game, but I don't think I can't tell you it's going to be there. All right, but now it's time for everybody's favorite part of the podcast. It's trivia. I don't know I know not all of you are from the state, so I don't know how deep back your guys' knowledge goes. This isn't crazy, but this is an older player, and I'll let you guys know that. It's in the 2000s. I'll tell you that. So we have a little bit of an idea. I'm going to tell you guys the team first, and then I'll go to the years, and then I'll go to position. So he was with the Saints, Broncos, Raiders, Washington, and then Bears. That's the career path.
Writing down the career path
Can you
this
say it
time, so
again?
don't ask it every time.
Yeah, I'll say it again. So it goes, he's from the Saints. I'll say he's been with the Saints. That was the team he was the longest tenure with. Then he goes to the Broncos, the Raiders, Washington, and then the Bears.
Oh. It's Broncos. Is it a cornerback?
It is a cornerback. I'll give it to you. Yes, it's a cornerback.
Oh no, I got the position again this time. This 2 weeks in a row. Oh God.
Do we want years? Do years help out?
You could say them. I don't know how much it's gonna help.
Yeah.
So he was with the Saints from 2008 to 2011. He was with the Broncos in 2012, Raiders in 2013, Washington in 2014, and the Bears from 2015 to 2016. So a lot of one-year stints. He started his career with the Saints for 3 years, ended his career with the Bears for 2 years, and then between that is a bunch of one-year stints. And it looks like we lost Nick. Let me go ahead and do this again, just so it puts my camera back in place. I mean, you guys got the position. You come up, you think
This is gonna be a wild name because I don't think it's right. Is it Chris Harris Jr.?
it is not Chris Harris Jr.
Okay.
Okay.
Didn't think it was.
I'll
but-
say, I really think you
Right,
guys should
yeah.
think about Saints cornerbacks from 2008 to 2011. I think you
I was
guys.
like 5 years old at the time.
I think. Wow, you were 5. Okay. I think people would be a little upset at you guys if you don't get this. I'll give it about one more minute.
It's harder than it looks. This is harder than it looks. It's
It-
running through all the
no.
names. I'm
You,
gonna be so mad when I
Not
hear it, by the
easy.
way.
I think you'd be mad. It's a name you can't miss.
There we go.
No, you back? They're still struggling. I'll
So
give you
Saints-
I'll redo the names and teams.
He
for
made sure
you.
to leave. He made sure to leave to look it up. He
All right, so he
That
was
was the college.
he's a Saints corner. I don't actually have the college written down, so I'm not sure. So it's a Saints cornerback from 2008 to 2011. He was with the Broncos in 2012, the Raiders in
It's not
2013.
Tracy Porter.
It is Tracy Porter. Tracy Porter.
Tracy Porter, okay.
Pick 6 in
I
the
was looking
Super
for the
Bowl.
Indiana College. Yeah.
I was wondering. I was like, "Come on, let's think of quarterbacks in this time frame, guys. It's got to be the most notable." Yeah, it was Tracy Porter, Super Bowl winner for the Saints.
Maybe he played for
Officially
the Broncos.
retired.
Forgot he played for the other teams.
Retired.
I knew he was a Bears. Honestly, I knew he was Bears and Broncos. I never knew the Raiders or
Yeah,
Washington.
no, I had no idea for that.
But they were 1 year stints. I don't think we
Chris
would have.
Harris Jr. Caleb, come on.
Yeah, Chris Harris Jr. is like with the Broncos for a while. I don't. I don't
I
know.
know.
if
That's
we
why I thought it was because there was a Saints Broncos connection with corner, and that was the only thing I had in my mind. And I was like, oh,
would. Right.
As soon as I joined, I heard like, cornerback and Broncos, and I just immediately thought Champ Bailey.
But Champ Bailey did. Well, he was a practice squad. This now, by the way, he could have been on any other team. This is only teams he played games for. I don't have like every.
Was Aqib Talib was on the Broncos, right?
Yeah. Keep
Yeah.
Talib's.
Aqib Talib was just running through my brain. It was the only name I could think of, and I was like, that doesn't make sense,
I
but it
think
just kept
he
running
was
through
been
my
on the
brain.
Raiders at the end of his career, and then he was on the Rams for.
I think
a
he
while.
was. Yeah,
Mhm.
that sounds right.
All right, but now breaking out of it. I'm honestly a little disappointed, guys. Come on, I thought saying cornerback
Over
in
three.
Indonesia.
Over
That's a
three.
Super Bowl winning cornerback, guys.
I get a pass on that one.
Yeah. Nick wasn't here for most of it, so.
Oh
Alright.
no! Shh, no.
All right, so now we're gonna go to kind of just brief on OTAs. OTAs just wrapped up. We don't have like any singular thing. We have standouts here. I know a couple names that we want to go here. Does anybody want to start us off with maybe who your OTA standout was?
Yeah, my OTA standout was Alontae Taylor. After spending the first few weeks in the slot, like I said, played on the outside again. He's really embracing everything. Kellen Moore has loved working with Alontae Taylor so far. Said he's everything you want. He's got the juice every day. He just feels like he's going to become a really prominent leader for this football team. And like I mentioned in a previous episode, I really think he'll be a captain at the end of this offseason program. He's really just taken that next step, and hopefully it transfers to the field.
And I think it's awesome that you
Couldn't agree
mentioned
with you
him
more.
as your standout because your biggest worry was the cornerback room. So I think seeing Alontae Taylor perform well and take a hold of a position is probably really well, especially for you, who like said you specifically and all of us agreed are concerned about the cornerback room.
Right.
I couldn't agree with that more. Alontae Taylor's taken such a big step forward in OTAs, even just being as a leader. He's chirping for everyone, cheering people on. I think he's really done all you can ask for a third-year corner in this OTA session.
And like you said, Nick, like him stepping up as a captain, or basically captain quality, is huge because just having his devotion to the game added to that offense, and offense. Sorry, I'm still messed up about the trivia question. Having his attitude and devotion added to the defense as a young player is just so important to the future of this team. And I know we're getting closer and closer to his contract being an important conversation. So having this year being a big one for him is going to be very important.
Especially because the Saints don't have that voice in the secondary anymore. Tyrann Mathieu is about all you have, and I'll be honest, I don't know too much about Justin Reed to say how much he is. But the Saints, when it was the cornerback room, Marshawn Lattimore, Marcus Williams, we all remember it, how vocal these guys were, doing the campfires with the football. We all know they started the celebration in the end zone with the group photos. We all know that. They were the first ones to do it, and that all started, and we don't have much of that anymore. Alontae Taylor is really all we have left that's connected to that. Tyrann Mathieu didn't get to play around with him much. With the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was gone immediately after, so we don't have that swagger in the secondary as much anymore. And Alontae Taylor is about all we have left of that. All right,
I think Kool-Aid McKinstry could possibly bring some as well if he really develops the way the Saints hope.
Yeah, and he didn't do too much of it. I would say he didn't do too much of it his rookie year, and he's kind of a voice that you hope to stand up to. But I was kind of piggybacking off of the fact that you guys are saying he is being so vocal in OTAs, and he's becoming that voice. And I hope it becomes contagious, and then everybody's got that voice, and everybody's got that dog in them, the swagger in them to go around and do these, because we don't have that anymore. And it was exciting to watch. I can't tell you guys how much I used to enjoy. I had Drew Brees on offense, and I was excited to watch the defense. That's something we haven't had in a few years, just because, I mean, it went away with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, as much as we hate to admit it. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was the first loss there, and I believe Marcus Williams followed, and then so we don't have much of that anymore. Or I believe it was Marcus Williams then Chauncey. But either way, we don't have that voice anymore, and I'm glad Alontae Taylor's being more outspoken in a sense. That's what I want to see. OTAs don't matter too much in the sense of play. We know what it means. Even a training camp, right? It doesn't mean too much until you get on the field. But what does show is that leadership. But I'm actually gonna stick one out because I know one of us is gonna mention him anyway. So I'll go ahead and throw the name out there. Bub Means. I think we're all excited to see it. Bub Means his development is important, and to me, he's been name dropped a lot through OTAs, but to me, what's important about it is the Saints don't seem too concerned to attack to go get another wide receiver. So I think Bub Means is the guy that they feel comfortable with. Obviously, they brought in Donovan Peoples-Jones, but that's not a big. It's not a big signing on the paper. I don't even know if numbers ever came out for it, but it wasn't big. We know it wasn't big, and it's a 1 year deal. It's kind of like the Cedric Wilson deal, right? It's not a big deal, and but he is a good depth piece. They need a young guy to take a step, and I think that's Bub Means, and I think the Saints think that's Bub Means too.
And I think we've talked about Bub Means for 3 podcasts straight, and I think it's only been positive things, and the outlook has been great because it's the same thing I said last week. Him working with young quarterbacks has been a great thing, and I think he's going to be a really important piece in this offense if he stays healthy. Again, we've only seen a year, but he did deal with injuries. Hopefully that improves, but if he's healthy, I think he's going to add something different to this wide receiver room, and I think he's going to bring some of that juice that this offense needs with Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler at quarterback.
Yeah, and you bring up Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler, and we'll go a little more deeper into it. But we actually, I think, other than the one time I talked about the running game earlier, we stayed away from the quarterback room today, and I think that's something, probably because we attacked it on the first 2 podcasts, and we do have to talk about it. It is the biggest thing going on in Saints football right now, and we're going to go into it, I believe now, if anybody else has anything other OTA-wise that they want to bring up. Okay, you want to go ahead? I'll let you do that, and then we'll go into it.
Real quick, my kind of out there choice is Kellen Moore for my OTA standout because I think for the past 2 years with Dennis Allen and even with Sean Payton, answers weren't really something that were given as much. It was a little bit hold everything close. We're going to see how everything goes. Even last year, the quarterback battle went into week 5. It was just a little bit all over the place. But with Kellen Moore, there's been answers. There's been, this is what's happening. This is the good things. This is the things that need to improve. This is what our coaches are doing well. This is what players are doing well. Seeing everything behind the scenes has been great to watch. I remember people saying that Hard Knocks needed to be on the Saints because of we wanted to see the background. We're getting the background. This is everything we wanted to see. The offensive line, we could have had so many questions about the offensive line or alignment, and it could have been switching, but first open OTAs, it was the lineup that has been that since the beginning. And Kellen Moore has talked about it every single time, and it's been solid. This is the offensive lineup. Here it is. This is what's happening. Getting answers like that is something that we haven't had in a while, and it's just, I love to see it.
And it's a whole new.
I love what Kellen Moore's been saying.
I'll let you go, Drew. I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, I love what Kellen Moore's been saying. He's been clear, as you were saying. He's been clear, concisive. He knows what he's doing. It's been great to see, and you feel like he's building like more of a culture. In recent years with Dennis Allen, you really haven't felt this way before, but like going out to play paintball, or like the team really has felt together, and that's something we just haven't felt in a while. So I'm happy to see it.
And I'm interested that you said Kellen Moore because I think Nick here has probably been the person who's been pinpointing everything Kellen Moore recently. Nick has all the Kellen Moore quotes. Nick has been studying Kellen Moore, everything like that, and he's kind of been our quote guy for this. If we have any topic, Nick knows how Kellen Moore feels about that, but that kind of goes with what you were saying. We have the answers from it. Kellen Moore is expressing what he about everything, his opinion about it, how he wants it to go down. Now, could that maybe come back and bite us a little bit? Yeah, but you're getting your answers and you're getting the idea of where they want the team to go.
And I will say he's also not like revealing everything. Like he's still keeping things close that need to be kept close, but he's also not gonna like beat around the bush, and he's being like, no, this is what we're doing. It doesn't matter who knows what we're doing. Here it is. And if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out, but here it is.
All right, and to go into the final OTA topic, we are going to wrap up with the quarterback battle. It was going to eventually come here. We stayed away from it for most of the podcast. There was no agreement for that. I think we all just kind of, as much as we love the quarterback battle, there's other things to talk about in Saints football. But OTAs did end, and it is time to recap. Now, I have the numbers, if I could pull it up. Now, these numbers can be a little skewed because different reporters report different things. We weren't theirs. We don't have our own numbers. Nick actually might have different numbers than me right now. I'm going to read off what I have. If you have a little bit different, let us know. So, from the quarterback battle in OTAs, what I have is Shuck went 23 for 28. This is in 7-on-7 drills and then I believe red zone drills as well. He went 23 for 28, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. And I want to name that 2 of those touchdowns were deep 60-plus yard touchdowns. It's pretty impressive, pretty fun to hear, at least if you're a Saints team. And Rattler finished 24 for 28 with 3 touchdowns and no reported interceptions. So it's tight. These stats are like almost identical. That one interception from Shuck, if it was a completion, these are the exact same stats. What do you guys think about the QB battle and how intense it is?
Well, look, Kellen Moore said that the QB's ability to their mental capacity and their ability to communicate has been at a high level throughout the entire offseason program. Spencer Rattler just looks so quick and decisive compared to last year. And that ball zips, man. Like he's got a strong arm, a cannon. And Tyler Shuck, that flick of the wrist is just amazing. Like he's got one of the prettiest throwing motions I've ever seen. So yeah, it's been a really encouraging battle. Throughout the weeks, you see the Saints posting clips. They usually have one per day from one of the guys that it's either a 60-yard bomb or a guy stretching out for one of Tyler Shuck's running across the other side of the field on the move throws. It's really just been fun to watch, and I'm so excited to see how it plays out. Hunter Decker's also got some work in 7-on-7s this week as well. Went 2 for 4 with a touchdown. So yeah, all the guys are getting looks right now, and I expect Jake Haener to as well once he comes back, who he's actually been working on the side with Dallin Holker these past couple of weeks.
And looking at this, kind of focusing on the starting spot, because that is really what this is about, I still think that because it is so close, and I love what I've seen from Spencer Rattler, and those stats, I mean, are great for compared to what could have been from last year. There's clear improvement, but I just think it's too close. And the fact that it's too close, in my opinion, means that Tyler Shuck is still going to get that prop up because it's the coaching staff choosing him. He was drafted higher. I was about to say younger, not younger, but less years. I just think that there's too many factors where it's too close to call, and I think he's going to get propped up, and obviously we're going to see more of that. But I actually also want to focus on the fact that Tyler Shuck only threw 1 interception. I know it's amazing that Spencer Rattler threw 0. That's amazing. But the fact he only threw 1 is interesting because there could have been pressure, and we know that with Tyler Shuck, he kind of just will flick the ball up or makes something not the greatest decision that turns into an interception. I would love to see what that interception was, because if it was like a tipped ball and then it like tipped ball by the defensive line and that's just what happened. But I just like that it was just 1. And we're going to see more stats come out when more practices happen, but it's very good so far.
And I want to say, because I actually disagree with you, at this point forward, I think Spencer Rattler is going to be the guy. And there's only one thing. Kellen Moore said minicamp is going to be very similar to OTAs in terms of drills and everything. And we all know that. And I said this earlier when I said training camp. We all talk about that training camp hype and OTA hype. But training camp is when it's going to get real. Pads come on, hitting is permitted. You're allowed to do all of that. And that's when I think Spencer Rattler will pull away a little bit. He's got the experience now, a full offseason under his belt. I think Spencer Rattler, I mean, we can really only go off of numbers here. Looks better in terms of number. He has the 1 more completion that's not an interception. So that in terms, that is looking better. But I do think he has the experience now. I think he has the experience. And I know Tyler Shuck was drafted 40th overall. He's Kellen Moore's quarterback. And I think I'd be excited to see any of these guys named the quarterback. I'd like one guy to run away with it, to be real with you. But they're both making it hard on each other. I think training camp is when these conversations will really start to matter more. When these quarterbacks can be hit, when we know they're not going to get hit, but you get the point. Once that happens and the 11-11s are performed and all of these things are happening, I think Spencer Rattler will pull away with it just for the experience alone.
And I would love to just see a video on every single throw. I know we're never going to see a video of every single throw, but it's just like in the highlights, looking at it, sometimes Spencer Rattler, some of his short passes are kind of out of reach, and the wide receiver makes a great play while Tyler Shucks may be more on point. Those are also things we're not seeing. And maybe that is another difference maker that kind of separates Shuck from the hype. But I also understand where you're coming from.
100%. It's important for us to go that we're basically all going off of numbers here. None of us are here, during training camp. And when we can get more looks at this is when it'll reveal itself more. But all of our opinions really here, like I kind of said, really don't mean anything right now, and these talking points don't mean anything because we can't actually see what's going on in the field. Now, they are both alternating from playing with the ones and twos. We don't know if these touchdowns all came with the ones or twos. And we don't know how many of these are actually touchdowns because, like I said, some reporters report these as touchdowns, some of them didn't. It makes it really difficult to do it off of that. Now, before we do close out, does anybody else have anything that they want to say about this QB battle? Yeah,
I think we hit the nail on the head.
yeah. I think going off of it, where it's like we talked about it enough in the first 2 episodes, and we got another day worth of good stats from both of them to prove what we already said. So it's hard to keep talking about it in terms of anything other than numbers that these guys are reporting, and some of them have conflicting numbers anyways. But
I guess
with
I could.
yeah, go ahead.
I guess I could point to the Saints did red zone work this week. Spencer Rattler went 6 for 8 and had 3 touchdowns, and Tyler Shuck went 7 for 8 with a touchdown. So that is really encouraging considering how bad the Saints have been in the red zone the past couple of years. Last year, I know their red zone rate was awful. So it's really encouraging to see that,
Or
especially as 2
discouraging.
young guys.
That could also be very discouraging. I mean, that's only 3
Defense
incompletions in the red zone. Now, maybe the defense, maybe that's a little discouraging. But no, 100%. The red zone was a problem. Now, there was a certain quarterback that we had that had a lot of red zone problems. I'm not going to point blame to him, but that was also
An
a
offensive
problem.
coordinator.
And an offensive coordinator. But with that being said, we're going to wrap the episode up here, guys. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, you could catch me with Canal Street Chronicles, Athlon Sports. Nick is with Canal Street Chronicles. Caleb's with Canal Street Chronicles. And Drew is with Who Dat Dish. I had to look at your name. Anyways, we're closing out, guys. Appreciate everybody tuning in.